Hi, everyone. We are thrilled to be here today to be able to talk to you guys about clean energy and how it relates to the current global impending crisis of clean fresh water. My name is Christina Fluman, and this is my partner, Qingri Deng, and we are first-year graduate students in the architecture program at Syracuse University. So this semester, we had the opportunity to look into regions of the world that are at high risk of climate change, and we were tasked with the objective to create an installation that not only performed aesthetically, but also performed in a way that it could transform the area and actually mitigate certain effects of global climate change, depending on the region that we were investigating.
The region of the region of the world that we focus on is located in the Southeast Asia, an area expected to destroyed by rising sea level and temperature within the next 100 years. Jakarta is the capital city, which which is dealing with some challenges, such as rising sea levels and shortage of clean water and a large scale of urbanization and a rapid change. And there are four challenges Jakarta are facing. The first challenge is the soil water intrusion. Soil water intrusion has become a major issue due to the rising level. And the second challenge is the garbage accumulation. Due to a serious lack of the garbage disposal service, there has been a large accumulation in waste disposal, and their disposal. And so the third charging is the third charging is the
It's the privatization of water and the fact that the government isn't able to provide the basic human right of fresh, clean water to all of its citizens. It's actually only 30% of the population that has access to fresh, clean water.
And the final challenge is the groundwater pumping. This action is actually the fraction causing the city to sink, and so that the groundwater will become decreasing due to the extraction of the water.
Right, so now that we've given you a little bit of background on the issues that are surrounding Jakarta currently, we wanted to help you visualize the numbers and actually show statistically what's going on in this area. So 65% of the population relies on groundwater wells for their access to fresh, clean water. This is because, as I mentioned before, the city can only provide 30% of the population with fresh, clean water. And going along with this, 96% of the rivers in Jakarta are in fact polluted, and 13 of them have been found to contain dangerous levels of chemicals. 97% of Jakarta is covered with concrete and asphalt, so the aquifers are unable to be replenished through rainwater. And lastly, it is projected that this area will have to deal with between 3 to 7 meters of sea level rise within the next 100 years, and this is equivalent to around 10 to 23 feet. So it's clear that the government of Jakarta is not able to provide water to its citizens, and this is due to the privatizations of the system. So actually in 2015 it was decided that they would transfer from the private to the public. So with that being said, this actually provided us with an opportunity to speculate on ways that we could possibly help with getting fresh water to the citizens of Jakarta. And that's where our project comes in, and we call it the Fresh Water Pod. And actually it performs by turning salt water into fresh water through the use of solar radiation. It harnesses natural solar radiation as well as transforming this into energy.
There are advantages and disadvantages associated with any systems. In the case of the desalination, there is the issue of brine build-up, size, and energy required of the system. as well as the harmful effects on marine life. It is a well-known fact that there is more saltwater than freshwater on Earth. 97.5% of the world water on Earth is saltwater, so why not try to use this saltwater? And desalination can be combined with the water filtration so that it can create an even more efficient process. And so how does it work? This destination process works by distilling the seawater and then capturing the freshwater through condensation, and water vapor can be condensed along the sides of the evaporation chamber and then rain down into the collection trough and become available to citizens.
So the bottom of the freshwater pot is actually perforated to allow for a constant flow of salt water into the system. The system is supported by a buoy system that actually keeps the top half above the seawater at all times so that solar energy can always be entering the system. And if there isn't enough of natural solar radiation to provide for an optimum temperature for the evaporation of water, then the stored solar radiation in the solar panels actually brings the temperature up so that water can then be evaporated and condensed along the sides. So once the freshwater chamber is full, the sensors send a message to shore, and these pods are then pulled into shore, and then the public has direct access through a pump that is connected into the chamber. And then the last thing that's associated with this is that there's a light, and it indicates water quality in that area, and depending on the color of the light, depends on whether or not there might need to be another level for filtration before this water can be safely consumed by the citizens of Jakarta. So as designers, we are asked to always be critical of our work as well as other people's work and how it can be adapted to better perform in certain areas. And keeping this in mind, we have speculated on different adaptive abilities such as garbage collection, further filtration systems, larger scale of desalination, and also finding ways to be more interactive with the community and provide better services for the people of Jakarta. And in conclusion, we just want to leave you with a certain mindset that we bring into our work every day. And that is to always be critical and speculative on current issues, and to ask questions to get immediate answers, but then take those answers and investigate them and be critical and reformulate your questions to come up with new answers and new innovative ways of addressing different global issues. So thank you.
All right, thank you, team. Speaking of questions, any from the judges?
I was just saying it's interesting to be in the region where we have 20% of the world's fresh water right at our shores. So this is really a challenging problem, even in terms of that community engagement around this topic, right, globally. So I have a question. You talked about desalination and some of the issues when you talked about challenges, and you talked about some of the environmental impacts of desal and the fact that we have so much salt water in the world, so why not? My understanding of desalination, and one of the challenges, or the biggest challenge to it, is the cost of doing it. So does your design and your project in any way address the cost of desal?
So a lot of times when we think about desalination, we think about the really large desalination plants that require a ton of energy, whether it be distillation or reverse osmosis. So the way that we try and mitigate that is that we actually bring it on a much smaller scale. So the size of these would actually only be about 5 by 5 by 5. And it reduces the amount of energy required for the system, and also the impacts on the environment directly, because another thing associated with desalination is the production of brine water, and what do you do with that? And in our case, because the system is an open system and water is constantly flowing in and out, the solute is moving from a high concentration to a low concentration, so it's constantly cleaning the system. Mm-hmm.
So, hi guys, thanks for your presentation. Really appreciated it. it seems like there's a need for a central collection and distribution system, and that would require some either participation from a government or a large infusion of cash to create that. Have you thought about the implications for that collection and distribution system in terms of the impact that it could have?
Right. So the way that we actually designed this is so that you wouldn't need a large collection and distribution center, because each pod functions. I mean, it functions as a whole, but it also functions individually. So once one is full, one comes, and then it's like this constant back and forth exchanging. And so it's the system we picked for. Oh, here it's on this slide. So we have 4 different locations for the systems, but actually, that's actually a very interesting question, because the scale of this project, we were only asked to look at, like, it wasn't like a large-scale urban project, it was a very like localized project, but in terms of further community impact, like, we would love to look at it more of an urban project and how we can make a bigger community impact by creating a central center that could also act as like a hub for like community outreach and stuff like that. But you're right, it would require a large amount of capital to even create. So yeah, we haven't really looked into that, to answer your question.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, wait.
One more. So there are other evaporative models for desalination out there, and I was just wondering how you distinguish yourself from. And I really appreciated the explanation you gave. Sorry, I'll slow down. I really appreciated the explanation you gave to Antonina about how you deal with the brine issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering how else you distinguish yourselves from the other evaporative models that are kind of being talked about now for desalination.
So I think that the fact that ours, they're single units, and also the idea that water is constantly moving in and out, it's never trapped, it's always an open system, and also we were asked to have an aesthetic quality to it, and the light on top would actually be sort of a performative aspect of the installation.